YouTube, what is going on? It's Gino Bonino here. I'm going to do something I haven't done yet, which is I'm going to actually make a piggyback video. I'm piggybacking off Regie Simmons, a great guy. Love his videos. I watch him all the time. And somebody that's extremely active in the community. He did a video a few days back about how to properly board and bag comic books, and I thought it was a great video. I watched it intently, and again, there was things there that I didn't know about chemical compounds and makeups and things like that. But nonetheless, he did a good job of showing the ins and outs of how to bag and board. But what I want to do is explain it a little bit deeper, maybe go another step further into why some of this is a good way to do things and why some of it isn't. The first thing I'm going to talk about is my comic book. So nobody freaks out. This comic is old, it's beat up, and I chose it that way intentionally. It'll never have any value, unfortunately, because of that. It's got a bent corner and it's just in rough shape. So again, that's why I picked this one. This was part of a collection that I picked up, and again, it's just basically a 50-cent or a good book to practice doing pressing and stuff like that on. But anyway, I've got your typical bag and board here. Consisting again of there's none of this is your typical one that you've got to tape yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it the bag and board as a normal person would put it, which is to put the shiny side forward towards the front of the bag and then slide the comic in. Some people will put them both in at the same time. I'm doing it this way intentionally, and again, I know I bent this. I did that intentionally. But I want to show the advantages and disadvantages of the different ways to tape and seal your book up. The first way that was talked about is just a single piece of good old-fashioned Scotch tape put this way, and this is tried and true. Easy to take off usually. The problem with doing it this way is you get what I call these little bat wings. A lot of times when you slide this book in your box, these edges will catch and they create this little thing which we all hate. Again, I kind of call it bat wings, and kind of a pain in the butt. Typically they'll stick up above the book, so you've got to push it down, and again, it's just kind of something, it's one of those little annoying pet peeves. Certainly not the end of the world, but again, just kind of a pet peeve. Also, with doing it this way, when you want to remove your comic, you've got, now this is kind of an advantage or a disadvantage. You've always got this piece of tape. Now the smart money is always to remove this, peel it off, stick it somewhere else. But over time, and especially depending on the type of tape you use, sometimes this will kind of get really stuck to the bag. And let's face it, sometimes we're in a hurry. Sometimes we're checking to see if we've got a special issue, if it's got a coupon in it or something like that. So we run to our box, pull our comic out, and forget, we're not thinking straight, and we'll pull the comic out. And the nice thing about doing it this way is you only have one piece of tape that you've got to worry about. So it's kind of easy to put your hand here and slide the comic out of the bag, and voila. And again, that's kind of an advantage of doing it this way. Now, the other way that was discussed is putting this. We're going to start from scratch. We're going to act like that never happened, and we're going to do the two-piece of tape method. So one would go about here, and one would go about here. And I'm doing this quickly. Again, I know the wise thing to do is to take more time, but I'm just doing this so we can get through this quickly. Now, this is one way to keep the bat wings from sliding up, which is why a lot of times people use two pieces of tape. It's just kind of a neater aesthetic. You don't have to worry about, again, the little things popping up, and also it seems to seal the comic better. There's not as much air can get in and out. It tends to put a seal on both sides, and it gives a nice flat appearance on the front as well. Now, the disadvantage of this, and I'm sure we've all had this happen, I've had it happen at a convention where somebody's actually pulled out a book to look at it and has done this, is now you've got two pieces of tape here. And again, once again, the smart money is to take both pieces of tape and stick it off to the side. But sometimes people forget. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I'm in a hurry and my mind is somewhere else. Or Sometimes what happens is, depending once again on the brand of Scotch tape, this will make kind of a permanent um, bond to the bag, and the only way you're going to get it off is either to rip the bag or to cut the tape or to fold the tape over. Kind of a pain in the butt, I'll be honest with you. So what happens is we get in a hurry and we go to pull the book out, and there, check it out. I've got it caught. Now here's where the panic and the prayers start coming in. You're like, okay, I know this just barely tacked onto it, so let's see if we can get this off. So you'll go and you'll start giving it just a little tug, and you'll hope to God that you didn't do it too bad, and lo and behold, it'll pull a little fleck of the cover off, or something like that. Enough to take a 9.8 book and turn it into, a 9.0 or something like that. I mean, personally speaking, I have a Fantastic Four 49, and I did this exact thing to it. I was stupidly looking through it and pulled it out quickly. I was excited about seeing the comic, and it left a couple little pieces of tape stuck to the cover and pulled off a couple just small little flecks of cover, but certainly a grading company is going to notice it, and they mentioned it actually in the grader notes, and I actually kind of laughed because it wasn't a terribly high graded book anyway. It was probably a 4 or 5 if memory serves me right, and I'm sure this probably brought it down at least a half a grader, so they're a little bit more forgiving on Silver Age books. So it didn't kill the book, but if you have a brand new, let's say you have a 1001 modern variant, and the only thing that keeps the book from being a 9.8 is that little hunk of tape that it's gonna you're gonna lose sleep over it, trust me. So it is something to be aware of. So once again, 2 pieces of tape, it's prettier, looks nice, gives a nicer aesthetic, but now it's much harder to get that book out, because now you don't have the single piece of tape here, you've got the 2 pieces of tape. So when your hand isn't going to be able to cover both of those to get it out usually, and it's just more things to mess with. And again, the smart money is to take the tape off. I see people do this all the time, but of course when we're making a video, we're being super careful. So we're doing that when sometimes at home you're just simply not, or you're again, you're in a much bigger hurry. So that's the advantage and disadvantage of doing it that way. The other thing that was talked about is the self-sealing bags, or the resealers, and I like those. I did discover this as well, though, that with this resealer, even though this seems like not a real strong adhesive, it is strong enough to take color off a book, especially if you lay it down. What I did is I actually was taking pictures of a book, and I set it down like this, put a book on top of it, and it had slid up, and it touched this, and this was sticky enough to where unfortunately it pulled off a couple little flecks of the cover. So it was actually the back side of the book, but still just annoying. It wasn't, once again, not a real expensive book. But it just was annoying. What ends up happening is you kick yourself in the butt, because you're like, why was I in such a hurry, etc. And that's what happened. So these things are nice. I like the reseals, but this is strong enough to where it will pull color off of a cover as well. Now the other option, and a lot of people like doing this, especially for expensive books, is they will use good old-fashioned painter's tape. Now, painter's tape, by its very nature, is not as sticky as Scotch tape or clear tape. And the reason being is this is actually meant to, you put this like on mop boards or on window frames, things that have already been painted, and it's meant to be able to peel off without taking the paint with it. Same kind of thing with the concept with a comic book. Hopefully, now again, comic books are, they're very delicate, so any glue or anything that touches a book will probably remove some color or leave some residue or something like that, so you want to avoid that. But the nice thing about blue tape is you can see it. It's not going to surprise you, It's not going to, you know, be a place where you didn't know it was, because it's completely different color than the, you know, than the bag itself. So there's the other way to do it. Now, this is something that hadn't been showed, and I'm just going to throw this out there for your attention. I kind of learned this trick when I worked conventions. When I worked conventions, I often had a lot of people that would come and want to take a book out of a bag. And sometimes when I couldn't keep an eye on it, sometimes when I couldn't take it out for them. So what I would do is do it this way. Now, this isn't a real pretty way, but this is a good way to do your books if somebody's going to handle them, that you aren't 100% sure of what their ability is to be able to handle your books, which is you're going to put, this is now going to be the front. And so what you do is you put this bag in, or this board in, excuse me, with the shiny side forward like you normally would. Put your comic book in, like so. And again, I know I'm rushing through this. This is just, and what you would do then in this case is seal it with, if you're going to seal it with Scotch tape, let's say you're going to do 2 pieces in front, like so. Now, first of all, it's not super pretty to look at, because obviously you've got 2 layers of plastic over the top of your book. But here's where the advantage is in this. If you're going to handle your books a lot, take them in and out of the bag. If you're going to have other people handle your book and you can't always keep an eye on it. If they do it this way, and then they slide the bag out, the bag now is a guard or covers any possibility of tape being able to touch the comic book. So what you have going on here is you've got a guard with this thing, and often what it'll do is the bag will even catch the board, or the tape will catch the board, I should say, so it kind of creates a stopping point. So now what happens is you can easily grab the comic book and pull it out without any fear of there being any touching of the tape to the comic book. So once again, it's just kind of the same concept as the way we normally do it, but it's just backwards. Now, it doesn't matter if this is stuck to a board, because it comes off easy enough, and it doesn't matter, of course, if the takes off a little piece of the back of the board, so what? But once again, the thing here is you've got it backwards, and again, the reason for doing it this way is when somebody's going to handle the comic book, if they're not able to pull the tape off, they're not able to get it unstuck, or again, sometimes unfortunately people that look at your comic books aren't as concerned about their safety as you are. So what happens is this thing kind of creates a guard. If they come out with the board first, and that's what I usually would tell them, make sure and take the board out a little bit, and then that'll create a guard against the tape. And then the comic, and then it often will stick, so you can't pull it out, you know, it can only pull it out a little way. Now the tape is completely covered, and now the comic book comes out. And like I said, there's no fear whatsoever of any tape touching comic book. Now the disadvantage of doing it this way is it's just a little bit uglier, I'll be honest with you, because now you've got 2 layers of plastic and a layer of tape that cover it this way. So I don't think this is necessarily a permanent way to do this, but it's a way to do it if your book is going to get handled and you're fearing, you know, afraid of somebody going to stick it, you know, stick some tape or something like that and pull some color. So that is it, guys. I know we went on for what, about 6-7 minutes, 14 minutes over something as simple as bagging and boarding. And I'm sure I'm going to get some people telling me there's a better way to do it. You can go upside down. I used to do upside down, actually, and the reason I did it is because I didn't want to get all the marks and stuff like that associated with it. So what I do is do it upside down and do it like so, and then alter it every so often so you didn't get, you know, as much layer. But there's 100 ways to do it, literally, but again, I think whatever way works best for you, like I mentioned, advantages and disadvantages of all. The key to the whole thing, to be completely honest with you, is just to simply be careful. Take your time, realize what you're dealing with is something that if a piece of tape touches it, it's going to decrease the value of it incredibly much, and also it's going to, you know, ruin the appearance. If you're one of these people that love to have absolutely near mint books and stuff like that, just a little hunk of flake of ink pulled off is going to create an issue. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Gino Bonino, I am out, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.